Today on Film Right, we talk continuity and film mistakes.
You've lost your mind. Officially.
I'm not saying it's my personal most anticipated. I'm saying in general it's the most anticipated.
No.
You can't deny that it's popular.
I did not deny this sad fact.
Well, there you
It's
go.
popular, not the most anticipated of the year. It's a glittery vampire and an emo werewolf.
People love it.
It's obscene.
It's a love story.
It's the perversion of all things cinematically good.
It's beautiful.
It's the film equivalent of Justin Bieber.
I love it.
It's like the wait, what?
What?
You said you loved it.
No, I said you judged it.
Nope. Not what you said.
No, I said
You like Twilight.
I do not.
It's your most anticipated of the year?
No. I'm excited for like Batman and Spider-Man and stuff.
So all the times you said Amber was making you watch those movies? Oh my god!
No. That was awful. I wanted to watch like Rambo and stuff and seeing random dudes get punched in the face.
You're a liar.
am not!
Eris Quinones, you're a liar, and you will spend eternity on this ship!
Whoa, what's with all the yelling, kids?
Ryan, he thinks that Twilight is a good movie.
Eat up, Buttercup. No more sour faces. Eat up.
Oh god!
I put bug spray in his.
What?
He likes Twilight. That's obscene.
Harry?
Logo. Welcome to Film Right, the show that takes mystery out of the effects and techniques, going to some of your favorite Hollywood films. I'm your host, Ryan Conley, and as you saw, we had a bunch of purposeful continuity issues in that sketch, which I'm sure you noticed, unless you're the most oblivious person in the world. So today we will be talking about said continuity thanks to this guy. Hey, Ryan guy, I was hoping you could explain continuity on the show. Short and sweet. That's some good emailing right there. The main thing you think about when you think continuity is the change of something obvious within a scene, like a glass that was mostly empty suddenly is full, or a cigarette continuously changing lengths. You could initially pass this off as not a big deal, and when it comes to comedy, I would mostly agree that it isn't really that big of a deal, but pretty much any other genre will suffer greatly from poor continuity. A good film is basically a magic trick. You create this illusion of another world and these characters that don't exist, and then ask your audience to give themselves over to it and suspend all disbelief. So when you have a glaring continuity error, you jeopardize your illusion and will usually pull your audience right out of your film, which will greatly damage your pacing and distract from your story. Some of the most common errors, like I mentioned before, can be avoided easily by getting a good script supervisor on your production, also known as the continuity supervisor or continuity.
Right.
This is the person that's not only keeping an eye on the script as you shoot to make sure you stay on track, but also the one who will keep an eye on all things continuity. If your actor does a take where he crosses his arm on a certain line and the director likes that take, the script suit will mark down on the script to make sure that the actor repeats this. This is also the person who will take pictures of the arrangements of things on tables, counters, and so on, and although these guys or gals are the first line of defense for good continuity, they aren't the only ones responsible. Everyone on set should be assisting with this. For instance, the makeup department should be taking pictures of their actors and keeping a close eye on the work they do. That way a cut on the actor's face isn't placed on the left side one day and then the right side on the next day. It happens. I'm looking at you, Lord of the Rings. Another thing to keep in mind is that continuity is more than just objects on a table or a scar on a Metro Hobbit's face. It has a plethora of other avenues in a film, like visual continuity. For instance, say you have two people looking at the same thing, like a giant gorilla breaking it off. If the shot is not framed properly, the visual continuity will be off and will confuse your audience. For instance, if it looked like this, now it looks like one of these guys is looking at the giant and the other one is looking at the dude looking at the giant, which was not what we intended, as you can see in the wide shot. And the same will go for a conversation scene, but in reverse. And the last thing that I'll bring up as far as visual continuity goes is this. Whereas this one is a bit more loose and you can get away with it a lot easier, which is something I often break.
No.
If your actor leaves one room and then is running towards something, you want to keep his visual trajectory the same. So if he leaves running from left to right, in the next shot he should still be running from left to right. I personally throw this rule out the window like 90% of the time, but there are times where it really helps. Say you want to show your actor leaving a house and driving somewhere else, then later he will come back. Now, I will have my actor leave the house and show the car going from left to right. Then on the road, he's still going from left to right. Then the actor arrives at his destination, high-fives someone at random, and then wants to head home. This time, my actor will travel from right to left. So now I've set up this visual continuity that the actor driving from left to right means he's headed to that place, and from right to left means he's going home. One is going to, one is coming from. So now I can use this to my advantage throughout the story. But that is basically it. Continuity is something that is often overlooked in no-budget productions, which shouldn't be at all, since better continuity costs you nothing. Like for instance, in the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, you can clearly see a crew member over Jack Sparrow's shoulder. Don't think that they were supposed to have a straw cowboy hat, aviator glasses, and white tees on the ship. Or in Terminator 2, where the T-2000 breaks the glass of the helicopter and oozes his way inside. Awesome? Yes. But suddenly, the copter's windshield has repaired itself. Speaking of magical glass fixes, in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Spidey comes to the rescue of Mary Jane and throws two muggers into some windows behind her, shattering them everywhere. Oh, but wait, never mind. The glass is as good as new. Magic. Moving back, and oops, you weren't supposed to see that. In one scene from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, we can spot a lot of lighting gear behind good old Jack. This is a big oopsie and sort of reminds me of a gag from a Mel Brooks film, which this one comes from one of my favorite films of all time, It's a Wonderful Life. In this scene, a very happy George comes in to answer the phone. He throws a wreath that he has on his arm onto the desk in front of him, but oh, it's back right around his arm again, which is just one more example of the magic of Christmas. So there you go. Even the pros mess up every now and again, so buck up, buckaroo.
One of the first things we need to cover in making any movie is orienting the viewer. The first rule we can look at is the 180-degree rule. Once you establish a scene and show where people are, you've also established the 180-degree rule. From this master shot, we've established that the woman is on the right and the man is on the left. That means that whenever we show them, he should be on the left and she should be on the right side. From the overhead, we can show that as soon as we place them for the camera, the placement of the camera can only go anywhere on this side of the line, meaning 180 degrees on this line. We can aim the camera in any direction, but it must be on this side of the line. Now, even though from overhead we can clearly see where the actors are, it's not as clear from what the camera sees. If we break the 180-degree rule and place one camera here and the other camera over here, the camera view shows the actors facing the same direction. Even when the angles are not as blatantly off, it can be disorienting because the actors' eye lines won't match. Now, you can cross the 180-degree line, but you have to show the camera move, like so. Not only do you have to shoot this movement of crossing the line, but you also have to use it in the edit. That way you orient the viewer. Once you're on the other side of the line, you have to stay on it, unless you move the camera back to the other side. Remember, the camera is the viewer in the scene. They're a non-active participant in everything that's going on. They only see what you show them.
This episode of Film Riot Mondays is brought to you by Kef Audio. Today on Film Riot, we're going to be talking about camera techniques and showing you how to work it, girl. Welcome to Film Riot Mondays, the little brother to Film Riot. 2 weeks ago, we talked about basic coverage for a scene. Now today, we're going to take it a step further and talk about a few easy camera techniques that you can use to enhance your story. Ready as I am? Let's dance. First, we're going to go through the main types of shots and their names, and then later we're going to cover why you would want to use some of those shots for emotional reasons. First up is a long shot. This one is a shot that shows you the entirety of your subject. For instance, on a person, it would be from head to toe. Next, we move to a medium shot. This one is from about the hips up on an actor. After that, we move in further to a medium close-up, which is about from chest up, and then a close-up, which will be from the shoulders up, and then finally, an extreme close-up. An extreme close-up will fill the frame completely with your subject, and you can have an extreme close-up of pretty much anything. For instance, this would be a close-up of an actor's watch, and this would be an extreme close-up of the watch. Now we move on from distance to angle. We have a low angle, which is below your actor's eye level. By placing the camera lower, you are making your actor seem larger than your audience. This is a great way to denote power. You can, of course, use this to an extreme low angle, like Orson Welles famously did in Citizen Kane. He actually had his crew dig a hole in the studio floor so he could get the camera as low as he wanted, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. Next is a high angle, which will be a shot where your camera is higher than your actor's eye level. This can be used to denote weakness in your character or make them seem insignificant since we're visually seeing them as smaller. And of course, the extreme of this would be a bird's eye view shot. This shot is directly overhead of your subject. One of my favorite examples of this would be the final shot in Scorsese's Taxi Driver. It's almost like we have this God's view, which is empowering to the audience and also disconnects them from the event a bit and gives them this overview of the scene. Final type of angle I want to tell you about is the Dutch angle, also called the oblique angle. This is where the camera is not level. It's a bit off, which gives the feeling of something being wrong, which is a great way to push an odd feeling onto your audience and in your scene. My favorite examples of this come mostly from Brian De Palma's films, especially Mission Impossible. I think De Palma used the Dutch angle perfectly in that film. But there are more camera techniques than just the basic camera angle. There's also basic techniques on how you move the camera. For instance, you have a pan. That's when you're turning the camera left or right on a tripod or while a cameraman holds it, but they stay in the same position. Then you have a tilt, which is when you're moving the lens up or down, again with the tripod or cameraman staying in the same position. Next, we have the dolly shot. This is when the camera is locked down in some way, whether on a dolly or a slider or whatever DIY method that you've devised to use, and then you're moving the camera left, right, or forward and back on this track. Moving on, we have a crane shot, which is exactly what it sounds like. This is when the camera is on a jib or a crane and is being lowered or raised in a scene. One of the most famous for me is from Shawshank Redemption, which is also kind of a combo because we're also getting a bird's eye view at the end there. How you like them apples? Finally, you have handheld. This is when your camera is not locked down. It's instead operated by a cameraman on his shoulder. Or for a lot of us low-no budgeters, it's just our hands, because shoulder mounts are expensive. This is also an indie favorite because it makes production much faster since there's no need to set up extra gear for each angle. You can just do the whole run and gun thing. But those are the basics, and now after a quick break, we'll come back and talk about why you would want to use them for emotionality.
Logo.
So good to be back, baby dude. Let's get all emotional on this mother lover. Now, as a filmmaker, you always have to have your end result in mind. Your camera is the eyes of the audience. It's an objective observer that you have complete control over. So what visual techniques you use to tell your story will have one of the biggest impacts on the tone of your film. So understanding some of those basics of what effects these techniques can have is a must. Take, for instance, a dialogue scene. You can use the distance from your actor to help tell the story. If you want us to feel connected to the character and really feel the emotion that they're displaying, then you might want to go to a close-up, since this is a very intimate shot with the character. But if you want us to feel more disconnected, cut to a wider shot, and maybe even dirty the frame a bit with a foreground object. You can also use foreground objects to an extreme to maybe visually insinuate that the character is hiding something or that they're trapped, since visually there is nowhere to go. Then, if you want the character to seem lonely or abandoned, you may want to go to a long shot. Here we have the character in a wide open and empty space, no friends around. Then there is focal length, which is how zoomed in or out you are on your lens. If you use a longer focal length while shooting your subject, the background will feel much closer to them, which could give it a claustrophobic feel. But if you drop to a short focal length, the background seems much further from the subject and it opens up the world. We can also move the camera to help push the emotion you want your audience to feel. You can dolly in or out, to the right or left to reveal, or use a slow zoom for dramatic emphasis. The way you decide to use motion or not will have very different effects on your scene. Finally, we have depth of field. This is one of my favorites to mess with and one of the easiest ways to force your audience to focus on what you want them to. A good example of this is from our last episode in the sketch I rack focus from the wrist weapon to Josh's face. It was a great way to build the scene a bit further before moving to the next stage where all the shooting begins. It used to be next to impossible to get shallow depth of field for the non-budgeters like us, but now thanks to DSLRs and lens adapters, us no-budgeters can finally use this fantastical tool. But there you have it, the basics you need to know to get started with better visuals. Of course, rules are always made to be broken, and these shots can mean something completely different in different contexts of your story. The point is to start thinking about the psychology behind how you use your camera, so you can take your filmmaking skills to the next level.